chased validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity,
I see the comments from the post live show.
I will never yield.
I have responded to all of your comments.
I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. Special shout out to Steven. Steven flew in from vacation. He's here live. Man, I didn't know the mic was hot. I was making some adjustments while the podcast was starting up. You know, the dog entered the room. When I was sitting over here looking at him like, what's going on, man? Yeah, he was asleep, and then I was like, I gotta get to work. He woke up, seen I wasn't in the room. He had to come see what I was doing. Always wondering if I'm gonna leave him behind. Like, no, but I'm not gonna wake you up neither. If I'm gonna leave the house and I come get you. Um, we're live. We're live 7 nights a week. We do not let the sun rise without going live, but we do not always start on time. We're 10 minutes late today, and that's why we actually 15 minutes late today, because we said we was gonna start half past the hour, and we're quarter past the hour. But either way it goes, we're gonna make it do what it do. I ask you guys to like, subscribe, and mash those reaction buttons while you're on the live, and then hit the notification button so that you can be notified of the live when the live does go live. And then double check on the membership. I've been putting some things into the membership this week. It looks like tonight and tomorrow I'm going to see a lot of double time to kind of catch up on my guarantee to you guys. I was doing the calculations right before the show, and I was like, yeah, I can see myself probably today getting through 20 different items that I could put into the membership and space that out over the course of 10 days. And that'll be some of the stuff which will cover like 5 weeks worth of information, uh, that from like February through March, and get everybody kind of at least up to the April, May, and June scenario. And while I'm putting in your details for June going into July, that'll keep us on track where we're not going to miss out on any of the stuff that I have for you for June. So by the time we catch up to the June series, between the end of July, beginning of August, we will also be caught up with the first 6 months of stuff that I've covered for the year. And then what I'll be doing is, since it will be the anniversary of some of the stuff that I talked about last year, I will be probably doing some updates on some of the things like LLCs, C corporations, S corporations. Somebody threw in there LCC, and I'm like, wait a minute. I think they just threw up a bunch of algorithms, or not algorithms, but what do you call those? Um, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Um, um, but variables, letters to symbolize or subtext the word that represents the different types of businesses. So I think that when I start doing on the anniversary when I was covering LLCs and trusts and all of this other stuff, that I'll talk about the different types of businesses and then identify what they are and what their tax qualifications are. Uh, he says, do you do call-ins? Well, it's a rocky road. We have the ability for you to click the link, approve the mic, approve the camera, and come on in real time. And if I verify that you are an adult appropriately trying to perform on the show, like Steven, Steven's been on like 3 or 4 times recently. Not Steven, sorry. Sterling has been on 3 or 4 times live recently over the last week, over the last 2 weeks actually. And then we've had Jesse come on to the show. We've had Dylan on the show 3 or 4 times throughout the last couple of months. We've had quite a few special guests come onto the show. So you ask, do I do call-ins? Um, if you click the link, approve the mic, approve the camera, and I verify while you're in the background that you are an approved adult, then I may bring you onto the show. I have had some individuals that like to do um, that try to heckle the show and come in and be a little bit negative, and I've had to take them off the live and block them. So I bring you guys up, but it really depends on you guys. But you know, that's kind of going to be one of those neither here nor there situations. I don't think that you're correct about your assumption, because when people do come onto the live, first and foremost, the counter system that YouTube has right now is compromised for the sake of. So here's what's going on with YouTube. They are changing the viewer counts where you're only counted once. They also modify the fact that if you've already been counted and you're not being counted again, you once you get hit with an ad, you're no longer included. So the viewer count is going to show how many people have come onto the show and haven't been hit with an ad. But you can have hundreds of thousands of people. I've had 10, 6, 8,000 people on, and you could only see like a count of 50. Because we're also not just streaming live from YouTube Shorts Reel, we're also streaming live from YouTube 16 by 9 long form reel, which means that not all the comments are on both sides, which means that um, we will be in a situation where you're not going to see everybody, you're not going to see the total count, because you're only seeing the count from where you are, not where everybody is. And if you're not with the collective, then you're not going to see the quantity of people that are coming in and going out. So I just wanted to uh, get in there and cover that. Now, beyond that, like I noticed, like notice how he came in with the heckling. This is one of the reasons why it's wild. It's wild. But I wanted to answer that before I blocked him. So moving on, we being live 7 nights a week, um we have different topics that we cover every night of the week. On Sunday, we have questions and fans. Monday, we deal with business and politics, where on Monday we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. Tuesday, we talk about different ways to make, save, and invest money. We talk about different ways to look at the money, different ways for you to address how you make personal decisions that impact your money. Like yesterday, we were talking about the different mindset that you have when you approach the bank and how you negotiate your ability to utilize the bank to your benefit, as opposed to simply being a statistic towards their capital gains. Because I give you guys a lot of information. Like instead of you getting a CD from the bank and letting them hold your $5,000 to only get back like 5% year over year over the course of like a 3 year stint. I told you guys, like, man, you could do one step better and take that same 5 grand and link up with a lawyer and do cash advances on settlements for car crashes. And the more people that are in car crashes that need cash from the time they get into the crash until the time they settle their case, you negotiate with their crash attorney and verify that there's certain quantities of money there. And you yourself should set yourself a cap. Don't be greedy. You're not trying to take all of their money. Limit yourself to only collecting at max 20% of whatever the possible settlement is. So if the possible settlement is like $20,000, you want to stop yourself at around like $5,000. But that's like 25%. But if their possible outcome might be closer to um, like 50 to 100,000 or something like that, you might want to stop yourself at like 10,000, maybe 15,000, something like that. The reason being is because the attorney's going to take almost half. Then all the medical bills are going to be negotiated down. That might be a third, and then whatever's left goes to the client. So if the if because it's supposed to be 40%. So if out of 100 grand, 40 grand goes to the attorney, and then out of the remaining 60%, a third is probably going to go to the medical bills, which is going to be like 20, maybe 30,000. Then the remaining left over might be 20 to 40,000 that'll be left for the client. So if you were to out of that 20 or 40,000 to get 5 or 10,000, then you're guaranteed going to walk away with a decent quantity of money. If the case settles for less, the client gets nothing if you get everything that you're entitled to, because you get paid before the client gets paid, and you're getting paid directly from the lawyer. So it's a guaranteed transaction once the case settles. The only volatility you have with that type of scenario is um, if they lose the case. So if they're because there's two sides to every crash, and in that crash, somebody's going to settle, and in that settlement, sometimes the insurance pays and sometimes the insurance doesn't. And in these situations where the insurance doesn't pay and the client doesn't win, that's when you lose your money. So there is an opportunity for loss, but it's less of an opportunity of loss than the opportunity loss of handing it to the bank for 3 years and then allowing the money to just sit and linger and barely make enough money to cross over treasury bonds benefits. So that's the kind of stuff that we talk about on Tuesdays. Wednesday, today, we talk about different countries around the world to make, save, and invest money, and potentially go and live. Now, after that, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we discuss different ways that you can improve self-improvement, personal development, relationship topics, negotiation, socialization, building your brand. And we've actually covered the spread with promotions, raises, retirement, forced retirement, severance packages, termination. And as we walked into with the other show, Stephen, you were talking to me about that. When Michael jumped in and said, CDLs, grab you some CDLs and drive the country. No, we talk about our 20 and 30 year plan, and our 20 and 30 year plan is supposed to consist of, as I explained to Stephen in the comments, you should ask yourself quite a few questions. You know, what do I do, or what's going to happen when I stop? What do I do, or what's going to happen? Special shout out to Daniel. Uh, Happy Wednesday, my man. Uh, what do you do, or when you can't do it anymore? You know, and you have to ask yourself, like, what is your life supposed to be like at that moment? Either when you're physically incapable of doing it anymore, or when you just really decide, like, I don't want to work anymore. That's when your life still continues, but you no longer have the responsibility to show up somewhere to get paid. And from that moment forward, what do you have planned for your money coming in to cover your standard of living? Now, your standard of living is going to be your ideal standard of living, not your current standard of living, because your current standard of living is the way things were before you started building your retirement. Your ideal standard of living is going to be what you're aiming for your retirement. So if you've got poor health, you're trying to build a retirement where your health is covered. Like when Sterling came in and was talking about different medications that needs to be covered, you need to raise the money to cover that. You need to build the health savings accounts to cover that. You need to piece together ways for your money to make money for you so that you have enough money to cover the issues that you have in your health to the best of your ability. If you need help, like you have aches and pains, you can't get around, can't do a lot of stuff, you might need in-home nurses, housekeepers, this, that, and the third, a housekeeper that cooks, whatever the case may be. The older you get, the more needs you're going to have. And those needs need to be planned for in your younger years because you do not have a legacy that is trying to build your retirement for you where you're not going to have to worry about doing anything. You can turn your brain off and just idly work or not work, but like idly hang out and enjoy life, right? So avoiding the retirement homes, you're looking at what kind of at-home living situation you're going to have. Where's your living situation going to be? What kind of neighborhood is it going to be in? What's your commute to and from the doctor? How are you going to get there? What kind of vehicles you're going to have? Are they going to be older model cars, which with the way policies are changing right now, I would stick to the older model cars, or will it be like a more modern vehicle? All of the stuff that you need to plan for. Then, what city and state is it going to be in? Is it going to be in the United States? Is it going to be in another country? Which is why we on Wednesdays cover different countries around the world. Um, all of these things are done specifically to acknowledge your ability to determine how much your ideal living situation should cost. Then, when you think about how much your ideal living situation should cost, and this is like your annual salary to cover that, right? You would then reverse engineer that by multiplying like 0.04, or maybe if you want to throw in inflation, and because like 3 or 4% inflation on average, but then if you throw down like 3 or 4% taxation on top of that as well, you're looking at like 0.07 that you multiply your annual salary by, and you will end up with your total dollar figure. I put that mathematical equation into the membership to show you guys how to calculate the overall total cost that you would have to have in a brokerage account. And the reason why I do it this way is because we're doing like 100% dividend distributing stocks and bonds and ETFs. And the reason why we're doing that is because for individuals that's starting with nothing and working their way up to everything, if all of the shares that you have are producing a revenue, it doesn't matter if it's 3% revenue or 20% revenue. If all of your shares are producing a revenue, instead of you building a certain limit where you now can sell and pay taxes as you get older, you can actually build a limit and then live off of the interest, completely live off the interest. And that type of lifestyle would be a whole lot better for you because any tax exemptions that you qualify for because you're not selling anything. It's a buy and hold, and you're building the type of legacy that you can pass on to the next generation. Because if you have kids over the next 20 or 30 years, and then you teach them how to live under the income level that you've created, when they inherit that income level, they can either live a stress-free life under that income level or use that income level as a base floor or a safety net to build whatever life that they want to live. Because individuals that have dreams and goals and aspirations that requires 5, 10, 20 years of dedication, if you're not working on a 9 to 5 job while you're chasing your dreams to be an actor or an artist or a musician or whatever the case may be, the kind of career path, a writer or whatever the kind of career path that requires way more front loaded effort before the capital ever shows up, where those dreams and visions typically die because you don't have enough money to sustain yourself. So that prevents you from being the success you want it to be. Instead, you are kept under this baseline standard of living until you get on your feet. So if you wanted to be an actor, if you wanted to be a writer, if you wanted to be a movie star, if you wanted to be a musician or a rapper or a WWE superstar or whatever the case may be, you can practice that until it pays you because you have a lifetime of income covered where you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from or where you lay your head at with clean clothes and everything like that. And build that type of 20 or 30-year plan is the type of thing that most people don't think about. And that's why when I ask y'all where y'all want to be at in the future, not a lot of people know. Not a lot of people know. They just, oh, I just want to be happy. Like it's a Miss America pageant answer that they give. I just want to be happy, world peace. I want good health. You know, I want to be stress free. But what in your life has to change in order for you to be happy? What with your physical condition needs to change in order for you to be healthy? What in your life needs to change in order for you to be stress free? Because if you're stressed out, if your health is bad, and you're content but not happy, there's things in your life that you're not happy with that you would like to change, but you haven't changed it yet. If those three things don't exist in your present, what do you got to change in your life in order for you to get there for your retirement? And that's the planning phase, right? Steven says, people for pandemic plus two recession in retirement. Oh, yeah. Well, when you're dealing with this is the trickery. This is the trickery because when you're planning a retirement where you're going to sell the shares from your stock and you're going to live off of that, pandemic hits, stock collapses, you're selling short. So whatever you built is not going to last as long. But if you're getting dividends, unless the shares that you invested in defaults where the whole portfolio goes under, unless something like that happens, you're in a position where your dividends can continue to pay you on a regular basis, even if the stock market crashes. So unless they cut share pricing where you're making less money per share than you used to, because here's the thing. This is one of the things they don't think about. If you split shares, let's say you have one share for $100 and they split that share 10 times. Now you have 10 shares. And instead of it being 10 shares for $100, well, instead of it being one share for $100, now it might be 10 shares for $10, right? You have $100 worth of shares, you got 10 shares, right? It's still the same quantity of money. If one share used to be a dollar a share, they split it, now it's 10 cents a share. Now, big people, billionaires are gonna be like, oh man, that split, that fucked us over, blah, 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 blah. You're getting the same quantity of dividends. Now, let's flip the script. Let's say that it had like 10 shares for $10 a piece. They combined them to one share for $100. Let's say that 10 shares a share for the 10 shares is 10 cents a share for the $100 of shares. That is when you start taking a financial dip. That sucks. But if dollar for dollar the share value, special shout out to OG Kicks and FX Trader, if it splits and the dividend distribution is still the same because you have $100 worth of money, you're still getting your share values distributed. I mean, you're going to make money for you. But you do need to prepare for pandemics. You do need to prepare for recessions in retirement. But a recession is going to be the inability to receive income or an inability to make purchases due to the prices still being high, but the income still not being as high as the products. You can offset that by living at 30% of your income because say you get hit with a recession. With a recession, you um you things are going to cost more in certain situations. But if you're living at 30% of your income, if there's a 20% increase on cost, I mean, you're now at 50% of your income, right? You still got 50% of your income left. If you're at 90% of your income and there's a 20% increase on cost, then you can't afford shit. That's where the recession comes from. Stuff starts costing more, but you keep making the same amount of money, right? Just like with the tariffs hit, just like when the war hit, when prices go up, you can't afford shit, right? Now, um, pandemic. Pandemic is not that big of a deal if you're getting paid directly. What's a big deal is like a natural disaster where the power goes out. But if the power is functioning and we have a pandemic and everybody's on quarantine, if your money is going into your bank account and you can charge it on your card and have Walmart delivered to your house, then I mean, shit. Walmart delivers to your house, and then you don't got to leave the house. You can do no contact. They can put everything on the porch, and then you can just you know wait until they leave and they go grab the groceries, bring them in, and you're good to go. So but generating the type of income that is recession proof, generating the kind of income that is pandemic proof for your retirement is highly important because you won't have a job anymore, whether it's by choice or by force, and you have to deal with that type of lifestyle. And that's what we try to prepare everybody for. Trader says, if you are not happy when you are poor, you are not going to be really happy when you are rich. Well, that depends on why you're not happy, Trader, because if you're not happy because you're stressed out, and you're stressed out because you don't have enough money to pay all of your bills, or you have enough money to pay all your bills, but you're not sure because you have more bills coming in than you have paychecks being released, where you have bills due for the first 2 weeks of July and your paychecks haven't cleared yet in June, and you're not sure if you're going to make enough money between now and the bill being due to pay that bill. That type of stress is a level of unhappiness. Knowing that you have enough money to pay your bills is a level of peace. That level of peace will increase your level of happiness, right? Now, if you're unhappy because nobody likes your fucked up attitude, even if you got money, if you got a fucked up attitude, nobody's going to like you. If you're unhappy because you're alone and you're only going to try to find people that are going to hang around you for the money, so you're going to pay them to hang around you, you're still going to feel alone when you're surrounded by people. No matter how much money you get, you're not going to be able to fix that. If you're unhappy because you're living in an area where you're being mistreated, if you can afford to move to an area where you're not being mistreated, even if you're not moving to an area where you're being idolized, by eliminating the stressors in your life right now, because you could be living with family that's giving you a bad time because you're sleeping on their couch, but then you could also end up changing your scenario to where you're living in a house by yourself. um, if you are poor and the precursors of your unhappiness is based off of the stress, anxiety, and frustrations of being poor, and you eliminate those stressors, then you can improve your happiness. Now, you cannot replace the companionship and the emotional bonds and the positive socializations that you would get, regardless of what your income level was, if you were a positive social person. But anything that is related to financial stress, financial unhappiness, financial discomfort that leads you to be unhappy or unnecessarily full of anxiety and stress, you can fix that with wealth up to about 100,000 a year, and then after that, you kind of just plateau. So your overall ideal life improves as you get more money until you level off at like 100,000 a year, because you start making enough money to cover all the things you need when you can get everything done at the same time instead of having to put things off for several months or several years because you can't afford it. Okay, that makes a huge difference. But after that, no, you can't become a millionaire and then think, oh, my life is going to be fantastic. No, you're still going to have a level of boredom. If you are the type of person that's isolated in the house, you're going to end up being socially ostracized. You might find yourself needing companionship that you're going to fulfill with online interaction. Gaming. You're going to put a lot of money on your video games because you don't hang out with people in person. So you can't, when we think about what type of happiness you have, we have to think about what kind of happiness you want. Where is the happiness coming from in order for us to determine whether or not gaining financial freedom will fix that issue, right? So it really depends, like we talked about on the show last week and the week before, the difference between loud wealth and quiet wealth, the difference between becoming successful for yourself versus becoming successful for social approval. If you're doing it for you, you're changing the way you're impacted by your environment. If you're doing it for praise, You are hoping that society will treat you a certain way based on your status, and if they don't, you're still not going to be satisfied. So I do agree with you to some degree that you money is not going to solve all of your problems, but it will solve some of the problems that cannot be avoided because you're poor, right? He says, so correction, you are poor but still paying your bills. Well, I mean, if you're poor and you're paying your bills, but you're barely getting by, right? The stress behind barely getting by can be absolved if you had more money in the bank than you had bills. That in that scenario, you're building, like I said before, the mental freedom that you have when you know the peace of mind that you know that your bills are paid up for the rest of the year, and we're rent, light, gas, water, car insurance, everything, all of it's paid for the rest of the year. That type of mental freedom from that particular task is a level of psychological and emotional relief that can't come from being poor. Because if you're living from paycheck to paycheck, most of your bills are behind. You're trying to catch up with the landlord. You've got bill collectors calling you all the time, threatening you about payments for shit that you can't afford. Instead of you just letting the credit cards get charged off and blocking those phone numbers. And then what they'll do is they'll call you from a different number. Once they realize that the first number's blocked, they'll call you from a different number just to continue for 10 years trying to get you to pay on something that you're probably not going to pay because you can't afford it, right? Even if you ask some bill collectors to put you on a do not call list, they will put you on a do not call list. But when they sell the debt to somebody else, the new creditor that bought the debt from the last creditor is going to start calling you about the same bill. So even though you asked for yourself to be put on a do not call list with the last creditor, it's a new creditor. They don't know. You're not on a permanent don't call me for debt collection list because they don't have one of those, right? He says, I do agree that the level of happiness for most people is about 100 grand. Well, that's why women set the standard to 100 grand. But it's not just because it's 100 grand. Statistics show that you run out of stuff that you need once you cross over 100 grand because a comfortable standard of living is about $72,000 a year right now, 72 to $79,000 a year right now. And if you are making $100,000 a year, you not only have the quantity of money that is necessary to cover a base standard of living in a middle or upper middle class lifestyle, gated community, HOA, all this other stuff, you also would have an extra 20, $30,000 a year that you can cover with discretionary spending, right? And if you had a partner that was spending 15, $20,000 a year on hair, nails, and all this other ridiculousness, and you had another like $5 or $10,000 a year that you spent on entertainment for yourself, you and your partner would be happy in that $100,000 a year income because y'all would not need as much stuff, but you wouldn't be 100% happy. You would be more like 60 to 70% happy because you're still going to get on each other's nerves. And then there's still going to be your HOA is going to piss you off. You might be in a gated community where everything's covered, you don't have a patrol car, the security guard at the gate, you know what I mean? You have a fantastic setup, but there is still going to be a dick in your neighborhood that gets on your nerves, right? Whether it's the male person that's walking on your green grass or the kids playing in your pond in your backyard or whatever the case may be, there's always going to be something that's going to cause a little bit of frustration in your life. So you're not going to be 100% happy. But when we talk about being happy for the sake of financial happiness, is you're not going to be stressing about the things that you stress about right now on a day-to-day basis, which not a lot of people um, are capable of. There are people making 500 grand a year that and they are broke. Yeah, in California, there are people that are making $2 million a year that are broke. MC Hammer is like $5.5 million and he's considered broke. But the thing is, for the ideal observation of retirement, you're not trying to not be broke. You're trying to not be financially strained. You're trying to not be financially stressed. You're trying to not be financially frustrated. You're trying to not have to rob Peter to pay Paul. Peter and Paul should be paid, and you should have money on the side for yourself. Okay, when we're talking about your retirement. And so a lot of people take this mentally the wrong way when we give you some of the criteria of what a good retirement should look like, and then we get those devil's advocate hypotheticals that is produced not necessarily in an attempt to dismantle the claim, but as a contradictor to the claim. The ultimate goal is that if you're working from paycheck to paycheck, doing 10, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, you barely get any days off, you don't have any vacations, you don't know what to do when you don't have to go to work because you usually spend all of your waking hours at work. When you retire, that 18 hours a day that you used to spend slaving on a job, putting money in somebody else's pocket, you now have to yourself. And now you need to figure out what you're going to do with yourself. And the income that you used to get from slaving for somebody else to put money in their pocket, what is going to replace that income? So that you don't have to worry about where your next meal is going to come from, how to keep a roof over your head, how to keep your clothes clean, how to get transportation to the doctor, all of this other stuff. Then when you cover the basics, then you're not trying to live like trapped in your house, sleeping in your bedroom all day, every day. You're going to want to leave and go to restaurants, go out to dinner, socialize. You might want to go hang out at a bingo hall or something like that because you're not necessarily in your 70s trying to go clubbing, but you're gonna want to travel. You're gonna want to go see some of the different states in the country. If you're in the United States, you might want to go travel the world. And how do you afford to do that? You have to plan for all of that. You have to plan for all those things. So in order to pay attention to where do you want to see your future, you have to calculate how does that work, what does that look like, and what that cost is, and then bring it all the way back down to what do you got to do today to make those things possible. Anything that's a discomfort in your life right now, right? Like say you got a car that barely runs and you got to keep putting it in the shop. When you retire, you're going to want to have two cars, maybe three cars that are fully restored that don't have those mechanical problems. That might be on your to-do list just so that you don't got to worry about that, right? It just depends on who you are and what you got going on. What discomforts you right now that you can fix over the next 20 to 30 years so that's not going to be a discomfort when you quit working, you know? Trader says to keep up with inflation, do you need to grow your investments by about 4% a year on average? I'm not trying to keep up with inflation. I'm trying to outpace inflation. One of the things you have to think about, that's a fantastic question, Trader. That's a fantastic question. 4% on average right now, 3 to 4% right now is about inflation. They're going to say 3.1, 3.3, but if you really want to think about it, including war problems and all this other stuff, something close to 4% is going to be your inflation. And then treasury bonds are like 4%, 4.1%, 4.4%. So treasury bonds are keeping up with inflation, which means that your spending power 20 years from now on the money that you gave to the government to pay off government debt, they're going to give it back to you with enough interest to have the exact same purchase power that you had 20 years ago. Now, yeah, tax exempt, blah, 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 blah. But opportunity cost, you're getting like 4% return on your investment at best on a treasury bond. And even though it's not taxed, in 20 years, your $10,000 is not going to be $100,000 at 4%, right? Um, S&P 500 is on average about 10%, which outpaces inflation by 7%. But you also have on average about 3% taxes that comes off of the total amount of profits that you make off of your investment. So out of the 7%, you likely have 4% over taxation and inflation when you're operating on the S&P 500 or anything that is producing on average 10% equivalent to the S&P 500. Now, if you're dealing with one of the brokerages, or not brokerages, one of the portfolios like the ones that I put into the membership that are pacing like 15 to 18% return on investment, even after the 3% taxation and after the 4% inflation, you shave 7% off of 16%, you got 9% over inflation and taxation on an annual basis. You're outpacing the market. You're outpacing financial frustration. You're literally experiencing genuine growth. And any financial advisor, any investor or guru person would tell you that you want to have a portfolio that is outpacing safely um, the S&P 500 so that you can actually get that growth. Now, the more volatile the portfolio is, the higher the risk, and the higher the risk, the higher the reward, which means the more money you're going to get back in return. But like I talked to Stephen about one of the stocks, he has an Erie stock that's in his area. Um, there are certain stocks that the dividends continue to increase over time. And those are going to be growth dividend stocks that are going to benefit you in the long run. You have certain, and some of those stocks are going to be like post-tax stocks, so you can get that tax deferment scenario. But you have like real estate investment trust that'll flood you with capital, but you got to pay taxes on that because it's pre-tax, it's untaxed money that the real estate investment companies are offsetting to their shareholders. So you have a little bit more taxation, but you have a lot more profit. So you can build a cash machine off of REITs, and you can do a volatile cash machine off of REITs that's pushing like 20%, where you could literally be making so much money off of your real estate investment trust, but then you got to pay taxes on 100% of that because that's going to be earned income credit on a normal tax basis. But yeah, you would definitely need to outpace inflation because inflation is how much stuff can you buy with the same amount of money. Take, for example, we used to be able to buy a full tank of gas for a nickel and a quarter back in the day. Now, a nickel and a quarter wouldn't cover the taxes on buying gas, right? You wouldn't be able to start your car with a quarter. Now, you used to be able to fill your tank with a quarter. So, inflation, the quantity of money it costs to buy 1 gallon of gas now versus the quantity of money it costs to fill your tank before, you would need like $3 or $4 a gallon, which at 4 quarters per dollar, you're looking at like 16 gallons of gas from back in the day is the price of 1 gallon of gas today. That's inflation. You're able to get 15 less gallons for the same quantity of money. That's kind of what we're looking at, right? When we start calculating inflation, is that you all right? It is easy to retire rich if you start investing in your young age. Well, you can retire. You okay? So that's another thing we talked about on the show before. You're not necessarily you can retire rich if you start it young. If you start investing, if you teach your kids how to invest at 8, 9, 10 years old, and you give them a 20, 30-year, 40-year plan, they could be multi-millionaires before you die, unless you die from an unnatural cause, it's like a car crash or some shit like that. You know, if you teaching your kids how to invest from the time that they're 7 or 8 years old, and by the time they get to 20 or 30 years old, your kids know everything they need to know about making, saving, and investing money, and they will be coming out of high school rich, perceivably rich, right? Um, and those kids, if you teach them the diligence of sticking to their plan, to their path, not succumbing to impulse purchases and not succumbing to petty paying on their friends and everything like that, not flashing their wealth, then they will find themselves in a situation where um over the next 20 years they'll be multimillionaires by from 8 to 38, they will be set up. But when you look at people like Myron Gaines, he started off as a $50,000 a year man, and he was in his 20s. He's worth $8 million in his 30s. That's a 10-year stretch, right? In 10 years, the man made it to $8 million. So he didn't have to be like starting to invest in yourself as a baby, but you have to start putting your money in the right place as soon as you start getting more money than what you need. Any discretionary spending. Now, granted, Myron Gaines got all his money off of YouTube, so the 5, 10, $20,000 a week that he was getting, or a month that he was getting from YouTube, that was aiding in his ability to be as successful as he was in such a short period of time. does play a huge role in his ability to be successful versus taking a little bit of money out of your paycheck from time to time and putting it into the brokerage account. But what changes the narrative is if you are planning for financial freedom or if you are just planning for a vacation, right? Discretionary spending. So your idea of being rich is either the type of person who just wants to have a lot of money in the bank on paper, or the kind of person who doesn't have any responsibility because somebody else is paid to take care of that responsibility. True wealth is your lack of responsibility because it's somebody else is paid to take care of all of that. You've got an accountant to handle your money. You got a CPA to handle your taxes. You've got a trust handling your estate. So that means somebody else is worrying about the mortgage, the utilities, the lawn care, maintenance, and everything like that on the property. You've got trust and other individuals that are handling from trust agreements how to maintenance the cars and service this and service that and capital gains to cover all of this. The workers are paid and everything to that effect. So you got all of this stuff that is set up in a way where you don't have to do anything but wake up and, worst case scenario, have enough money in your bank account to put gas in your car when you run out of gas, and maybe just enough money to have to go and buy some groceries. That's about it. And then like shopping money or vacation money, you don't have any responsibilities. And when you don't have any responsibilities, that's true wealth. You know what I mean? But some people believe, well, I can be monetarily rich after a certain age if I do certain things. But it's not about having a bunch of money because just like you said, they got people making 500,000 a year that are broke. So they're monetarily rich on paper because $500,000 a year is a lot of money in Wisconsin, in Arkansas, in Louisiana, in Mississippi or Alabama. But $500,000 in New York, $500,000 in California, you just above the I can't afford to stay here level. Yeah, $500,000 in Hong Kong is like $500,000 in New York, but $500,000 a year in the Philippines where you only needed 24,000, that's a shit ton of money. Special shout out to Belarus and Bangladesh because $500,000 over there would be a long way, right? Did I heard of someone who has $5 billion in his Roth IRA. He outsmarted the IRS. Yes, more than likely he did. You can you can put a large quantity of money in your IRA. You can put a because you got to think about the IRA. Um, you've got the ability to put because here's the thing that the they have an overfunded scenario where they tax you for putting a bunch of money into your IRA that is above and beyond the 7,500. And then if you don't have a career, then the IRA or the IRS will assume that you have $0 income scenario that you're supposed to be putting into your IRA. So it really depends on how you do what you do. Because if you solely live off of your brokerage account, you don't have an income other than your brokerage account, and that's investment profits. That's not technically considered like W-2 style earned income. So you have to be careful with how you do it. But yeah, he dodged a bullet if he dumped a bunch of money into his IRA, or if he dumped a bunch of money into his 401k, or if he dumped a bunch of money onto life insurance policy so that he could take that money and borrow against a stone and go and buy a bunch of stuff that he could put into a brokerage account and then borrow against a brokerage account to double down on a brokerage account so that he can make a bunch of money on the back end. There's a lot of different ways to do it. He said put in stock options that were worth pennies at the time. That's even better because he could stay inside of the margin levels, and then he can redirect the capital towards stuff that's going to make money for his portfolio, and the growth on the portfolio is non-tax, which is better for him. Back in the day when stuff didn't have value because nobody was paying attention, people were able to score on stuff that right now everybody's looking at And now all we want to do is run to the high popularity things. We want to go to Apple. We want to go to Facebook. We want to go to Meta. We want to go to Tesla. We want to go to things that everybody knows about. Those are the expensive things. Johnson and Johnson, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all of this stuff. Those are the expensive ones because everybody knows about those. But when I put the stocks on the top of the screen that are undervalued stocks that most people don't know anything about, that are like $2 a share, $5 a share, $10 a share, that's offering between 5 and 12 cents a share return on investment every month. You're looking at 20%, 22%, 25% return on investment. Those values, nobody sees that. And nobody's paying attention to that. But if you could put that into your Roth IRA and you get 20% return on your Roth IRA, everybody's going to be like, shit, this dude's got money. Because you could, in fact, take your Roth IRA and go all in on some of the most volatile real estate investment trusts that they got out there. And if you did, if you just threw all your money down on MREITs and BDCs, and you just collect it because you're tax exempt now, you don't give a shit. You can throw it in there, not have to pay the taxes from the REIT, and your Roth IRA will be set. 20% return on investment for you doing 100 grand, that's 20 grand a year. So if you were sliding $500,000, you were sliding $1 million into it. It's easy to get $200,000 at 20% untaxed. Then when you cross over 65, 69, 71, 75, you can just start pulling money out, start living life like a king. But if you continue to live paycheck to paycheck, you're never going to get there. Now, one of the other things we talk about, because we were doing an opener, but man, the opener is like an hour long now because we segued into a side topic, was Sunday, which is questions and comments from the fans. Because I went through the whole week. Now, today we're supposed to be talking about Cameroon. And one of the things that we notice is that a lot of times people come underprepared when they travel to other countries, or they overpay in other countries. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit today. And we wanted to ask, can you really live a life of luxury in an African nation for the price of a cramped studio apartment in a Western city? And that is the question that had brought me here to a place called Cameroon. $3,000. That's what we're going to be talking about right now. For a lot of people watching, that's a good chunk of change, right? But it's hardly a ticket to a millionaire's lifestyle in the United States or Canada or Europe, right? In most big cities, that money gets eaten alive by rent, taxes, and just surviving, leaving almost nothing for comfort, let alone luxury, which is one of the reasons why we took a long period of time talking about the stress and getting that financial freedom to get rid of that stress. But what if I told you that the same $3,000 could unlock a completely different world? It's going to be a world with a spacious, modern apartment, buzzing social life, and money left over to save and invest. Now, if you go to Cameroon to put this exact theory to the test, you would be living there, tracking every single franc, every single dollar, just to see what $3,000 monthly budgets can really get you. And what's the question here? Is it comfortable or is it genuinely luxurious? Well, we're going to open up the books completely, and we're going to share you some of the exact monthly expenses, from rent to utilities down to the cost of beer with friends and your weekly grocery hauls. But we're not just scratching the surface. We're getting into real numbers to give you guys unfiltered looks at what it costs to live in Cameroon as an expat. But this isn't just about money. It's going to be about a lifestyle that the money buys. And that's going to be one of the things that we talk about when we talk about true financial freedom, the lifestyle that your money will buy, which replaces you from the responsibilities in your lifestyle. So I want you guys to continue to stick with me. Make sure if you haven't hit that subscription button, you do so, but make sure that you also like the show and mash those reaction buttons as we continue down what your life could be looking like in this part of the world. Now, I promise some of the answers are going to be very surprising. Before we get to some expense reports, we need to get to a little bit of a perspective. A number like $3,000 a month that I usually grab as a standardized number these days, because I was last year talking about $2,000 a month. Then I thought about, well, inflation, we're not trying to go to other countries and struggle. What would the average um, barely above poverty income look like, which would be approximately $3,600 a year, which is approximately $3,000 a month? What would that look like? Now, I understand that there's a lot of Americans right now that are watching the show right now that are probably making like $4,000 a month, right? But for individuals that are making $2,000 a month, you can still make it. $2,000 a month, you got to go to places like Cambodia, Japan, um, Philippines. But the Philippines is one of the only places. Well, Philippines and Cambodia are some of the places that will take you in and give you visas and residency and citizenship with only $24,000 a year income. Belarus and Bangladesh and Kazakhstan may do the same, but they also have criteria like your citizenship comes with investment property. You may not have a quarter million or a $500,000 to buy a house just to get residency, but a digital nomad visa, which is accepted in the Philippines right now, is like $24,000 that doesn't come from the Philippines that you're going to spend in the Philippines. They'll give you a visa, and $24,000 is $2,000 a month. They'll give you a visa, and the average lower to middle income standard living is between 1,500 and 1,700 a month. So if you got $2,000 a month, you're right in the middle income standard. Now, it's not super ultra luxury lifestyle, but it is the type of lifestyle where everything that you need within reason can be acquired. Special shout out to Uncommon Woman. Blessings, Xander, in the chat room. Woo! So, $3,000 a month means nothing if you don't understand the value in the local economy, specifically in the major cities of Yaoundé and Douala. I think I said that wrong the first time. Yaoundé and Douala, closer. Now, that's where our budget is going to be focused. So let's be clear. For the average Cameroonian, $3,000 a month is a huge amount of money. Crowdsourced data from 2024 and 2025 suggest the average monthly net salary, and net is the difference between what came in versus what was taken out of your pocket. The net salary is between $125 and $190 a month. So $3,000 a month in this situation would be wow. And while some estimates for a single person, the entire cost of living in a city like Yaoundé are around $570, excluding the rent. That number can climb to over $700 a month, including the rent, right? So when we talk about $3,000 budgets, which is roughly 1.8 million Central African francs, we are operating in a totally different league from the daily reality of most people here. It's a budget that places you firmly in the country's higher income segment. But it's a classic expat mistake to see that gap and think you'll live like a king for pennies, because you won't. While your money goes a long way, the expat lifestyle has its own price tag. The second you start wanting things that feel like home, whether it's specific cheeses, high-speed internet that doesn't quit, or an apartment with a 24-hour power and air conditioning system, you're playing in a different economic sandbox. The cost of living for an expat and for a local are two different conversations. So, our goal here isn't to live exactly like the locals, which would be much cheaper. It also wasn't to live in a totally isolated expat bubble, which would be way more expensive. We have to find a comfortable, high quality lifestyle that was still integrated with the local culture. So we're going to want safe, modern amenities and a social life, but we also want to shop at local markets and engage with the city. So $3,000 is going to be a good test. Could it do all of what we're looking for without having to compromise? As you're going to see, this budget buys you a very comfortable, even luxurious life, but you have to understand the choices that you're going to be making here. So, to really get what $3,000 a month unlocks, let's look at the baseline. So, if you're on a more modest budget of say $1,500 a month, which is around 900,000 African francs, you can still live a life that many would find amazing, but it means living more like a local and making different choices. Now, this is half of your budget, but let's start with that half. For the first thing that we cover on every uh, uh, country is going to be housing because housing costs the most wherever you go. On a $1,500 budget, you're probably going to be looking for a one-bedroom apartment outside the main expat areas instead of neighborhoods like Bastos in Yaoundé or Bonapariso in Daula. You might be in a perfectly good but more traditionally Cameroonian part of the city. Your rent could be in the $300 to $400 range. Not that bad. The apartment would be clean and very functional, but it wouldn't have the extras that drive up the cost. For instance, probably wouldn't have a shared pool or, more importantly, a pre installed high capacity generator, which helps with the rolling blackouts. Power grid reliability is a real issue in Cameroon, and no generator means you'll have power cuts just like everyone else. That's a major lifestyle difference. God forbid if you're going to spend the money to upgrade to solar. Whew, your $3,000 a month might not be enough. Next, you'd watch your utilities and internet because without running AC all the time, your electric bill would be much lower because of the rolling backouts. You're going to rely on fans. For internet, instead of paying for the best fiber optic plans, you might use a 4G modem, which works for most things but can be unstable for heavy duty workloads like live streaming. Your bills here might be around a combined $100 for the month. Your food budget would shift almost entirely to local open air markets. And this isn't hardship, it's a vibrant and super cheap way to live. You'd buy fresh produce, meat, fish for a fraction of the price of supermarkets. A budget of $200 a month on groceries would feel very generous, and you'd skip the expensive imported stuff at the big French owned supermarkets like Casino or Mahima. Yeah, they named the supermarket Casino. The block of Italian Parmesan cheese would be a rare treat, not a weekly buy. Dining out would mean exploring incredible local spots where you can get a great meal for a few dollars. For transport, you'd master the local system. Instead of owning a car or taking a private taxi, you'd use shared taxis where you pay a low fixed price, like 50 cents, to ride along a set of routes with other individuals. For shorter trips, you'd use moto taxis. Your monthly transportation could easily be under $50. So for $1,500 a month, you could get a decent apartment, eat well, and get around, and have a social life with about $500 to $600 left over. So you can absolutely live well, but you'd be trading convenience and consistency. You'd have to be more patient with the infrastructure and more willing to go without certain Western comforts. It's an amazing, authentic way to experience a country, but it's not the luxurious life that I'm going to be testing here when we're going to be having this conversation. Now, this baseline shows what an extra $1,500 really buys you. So, the insulation from the day to day friction is going to buy you convenience. That's where financial freedom comes from, the convenience of not having to do without and the convenience of not having the stress of the wait. So, this is what we're going to come for. And I know you guys, make sure y'all mashing the reaction buttons. You guys are going to like this part because how would we spend $3,000 a month in Cameroon? You know, tracking everything. Here are the actual monthly expense averages based on a regular life in a major city. I would expect housing to be around $800 a month, which almost close to America because I mean we have in some cities in some states where you can still find a two-bedroom apartment for $950 a month just for the apartment. But housing is going to be one of the biggest expenses all the time. There's no question. It's the number one thing that defines your lifestyle as an expat. It's the number one thing that defines your lifestyle as an American. Matter of fact, if you get an apartment, nobody gives a shit that you got an apartment. Nobody says, "Oh, show me pictures of the apartment. Oh, give me a tour. Oh, because it's an apartment." Tell them you bought a house now. Oh, what's the address? Send me pictures. I want to know what it looks like. Blah, 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 blah. Because that is a status symbol and they want to gauge your status in comparison to theirs. They want to know what you got. If you're doing better than them, they're going to start complaining. If they're doing better than you, then they're still going to be like, oh, yeah, we're still homies, right? Because again, a lot of the times when we were broke, we didn't get the right kind of friends. We got friends out of convenience, right? Once the relationship stops being convenient because one of us is benefiting and the other one is not, the friendship stops being convenient, right? So if we're choosing a modern two-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood popular with expats and diplomats like Bastos in Yaoundé or Bonapariso in Daula, your rent is going to be around $800 a month. You might be thinking, $800 for an apartment in Cameroon? Cheap. And you're right, it is compared to the local market. But here's what that $800 is going to get you. First, security, high wall, gate, and 24/7 security guards. He ain't getting that shit in America for $800 a month. Second, and this is going to be a big one, comes with infrastructure. The building has a large shared generator that kicks in automatically during power cuts and water tank and pump system. So you're always going to have water. You're always going to have electricity. You're not going to have to experience those rolling blackouts. You're not just paying for the apartment, you're paying for the reliable utilities for $800 a month. The apartment itself is modern with two bathrooms, a fitted kitchen, air conditioning system, and the ability to run AC in a hot, humid climate without worrying about the grid is going to be a luxury that you can't put a price on. So for a premium one bedroom in a similar area, you might pay for around $650 to $750 a month. So getting that two bedroom for 800, extra $50, but you got a lot of extra space. Steven says, I miss $300 rent. I would have to go with the locals if I went there. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Why? Okay, it's a mindset shift. You're building generational wealth right now, Stephen. By the time you're 60, you're gonna if you keep doing this for 20 years, by the time you're 60, you're gonna find yourself in a position where you have enough money to say, I don't need to do it like the locals. I don't. You're coming off of the survivalist mindset. The survivalist mindset is to take the least amount of money when I get out there and then spend the least amount of money while I'm out there. If I got to pitch a tent, if I got to sleep in the woods, if I've got to rub two sticks together to start a fire, to cook two eggs over an open fire on a piece of wood, because I don't want to buy a pot, right? Sleep under the stars and use tree branches as a blanket because I don't want to buy a bed. We can put our mind on that to try to have the survivalist mentality, and that survivalist mentality comes from the lack of accessibility to income on a regular basis, where we don't want to buy anything that might be self-perceived as a luxury because we don't have enough money to buy all the things that we need. The self-preservation mindset is that we're going to pay for the base standard of living, and we're willing to do without anything that we don't really need to survive, which means that we're sacrificing personal comfort for the mentality of financial security, which is the wrong mentality. You're supposed to build the type of wealth before you fly to Africa so that you can afford to have a reasonably comfortable scenario. You don't need to live like the locals just because you're going there. I mean, yes, if this is a solely to engulf yourself in the culture and do it the way they do it so that you can see what they're going through, like an empathy trip, yeah, you can live like the locals. But just to save a few $100s, not worth it. The culture shock that you have to experience is not worth it. It's not necessary. Okay. You can benefit from a new world experience going to another country and still be able to maintain the things that you're used to in your current culture. That's not something that that's not something that people think about. Um, because if you're operating on a tight budget, it's hard for you to imagine right now saying, well, I'm barely getting by with what I got going on right now. How could I afford to take $3,000 a month and go to another country? If you were going to that country for, say, 2 weeks, $1,500 would be more than enough because it would cover the whole standard of living for a month. $3,000, if you took $3,000 to go out there plus the plane ticket, which is $5,000 round trip, you've got enough money to pay for 2 weeks worth of stay, even if they overcharge you. And then you would still have enough money to pay for amenities. You'd be able to pay for transportation to get around. You'd be able to enjoy the short time that you're going to be there and then come back. The difference is instead of stretching your stay 3 months on $3,000, where you're almost living like a homeless person to try to get by, you instead spend less time in that location and live a reasonably comfortable life over there for the limited period of time that you're there. Because if you're going there on a vacation, it's not supposed to be stressful. It's not supposed to be hard times. It's not supposed to be a struggle. And if you're living there on an extended stay for a better standard of living, it is still supposed to meet that same expectation. So you're not going to another country to live a shitty lifestyle and save money, because geo arbitrage, you can go to a cheaper country and you can live a shitty lifestyle and spend less money so that you can take the rest of the money that you're making on a regular basis and double down on your retirement. You can do that. But you got to ask yourself, is it worth it though? Because a lot of the times, if you're going to another country on a 90-day visa, if you need $9,000 to stay there for 3 months, 2,000 to get there and 2,000 to get back, that's $13,000. Now, for the average American making almost $26,000 a year, that's half a year's income to stay there for 3 months. Now, if your American household is still there, your $25,000 a year standard of living in America is still being, let's go a little bit higher. Your $55,000 a year income covering your American standard of living plus an extra $13,000 of the year's income to cover 3 months in Africa. If you had a $55,000 a year income and you had a $40,000 or less year standard of living, that extra $15,000 will go towards you spending 3 months in Africa. That's a vacation. That's a summer vacation. For a college student, that would have been like school's out in May, June, July, August. You come back and you're going to be back for drop ad week. That's what that is. That's not a full like transition to another country and changing citizenship and all this other stuff. But if you're only going to spend 3 months in another country on a vacation over the summer, and then you're going to come back and go to college in the fall term, you're not going to that country to suffer. So, Stephen, you have to change that mindset and say, man, I'm gonna do it on it. If the locals live on $750, I'm gonna live on $300. No, you're doing yourself an injustice. It doesn't matter if it's possible, you're doing yourself an injustice. If you struggle in your current country, what you want to do is two things when you're going to another country is you want to experience something new. That's one of the reasons why you're going, is to experience something new. But the other reason why you're going is to remove yourself, even if it's temporary, from the stress of your day-to-day life. So the goal is not to do it the cheapest way possible. The goal is to do it with the least amount of stress possible. And that's why we're talking about um, going there, even though everybody else is rocking the boat at like $600-700 of salary. And actually, I think I was covering it. There's like $190 salary is what the locals were living at. And I'm like, well, let's go there with 3 grand a month. That's way more than what they get paid on a regular basis. But it's the principle of the fact, right? Because I know that some people see Africa as a thriving nation, and some people see Africa as building houses out of sticks. Anywhere between those two ideologies is an income level. And the cheaper it gets, the harder life gets. Now, you can handle it, you're young, but in 25 years, is that what you want to be doing with your life? Living under 5 tree branches, wrapped up in some leaves, and calling it a good time because it's like a $250 a month lifestyle. I'm not trying to do that. Now, on to the utilities and the internet. If you're spending like $250 a month, that's like 150,000 African francs. And this is going to be a surprise that not a lot of people think about. because the biggest chunk is the electric bill. Just running AC is especially in the evening time and at night, is going to bring your bill to around about $120 a month out of your $250 a month electric and internet bill. On top of that, uh, you chip in for the diesel that everybody else is paying for that generator that's in that $800 a month apartment, and your share of that is going to end up being about $50 a month. So depending on how bad the power cuts are, you might have to pay a little bit more for the more frequent usage of the generator for the community. Then there's going to be the internet. Now, if you work online like I do, you need the best that you can get. You're going to pay for some premium in home fiber optic plans, which can cost you around $80 a month. It's pretty fast, but it's not cheap. Lightning fast internet you might be used to is something that you have to pay the cost to be the boss of. The high cost reflects the challenge of providing that service in this particular area. Water and cooking gas are cheap, maybe about $10 combined. So that $250 really for electricity, generating fuel, and internet, which is the holy trinity of the comfortable, connected lifestyle that you would need to feel like you're living the way you're living in America. Because one of the things we don't experience, like we're here on this podcast, like two, three, like the other day we were here 9 hours. How long do you think this podcast would last if I had fucking rolling blackouts? Even if I had a fluctuating blackout where the internet had to reboot itself, the podcast would cancel, right? The consistency of ongoing electricity, the consistency of that spotlight right there, that's the kind of luxuries that we have in America that we are so immune to that we don't pay any attention to it. I don't know. There's a lot of people that do this, but there's a lot of people that don't know what this is like. Try walking through your house without turning on any lights. I'm talking about in the day and any night, throughout the day and throughout the night. Matter of fact, if you can figure it out, turn the lights off on your refrigerator. See what it's like to walk through your house when it's pitch black. I can tell you, it's a whole different experience. A lot of people find out that they don't know where their furniture is. They'll find themselves bumping into stuff. And that's just one part of it. Turn off your air conditioner. It don't matter how hot it is, just turn that motherfucker off. You know, and you'll come to find out that a rolling blackout where you can't control when it's time to stop and turn the shit back on, rolling blackout, that's not fun. One of the other problems with a rolling blackout is that you got to be careful with what you buy from the store. Because if a rolling blackout is going to turn off your fridge for a few hours, you've got food thawing out and potentially spoiling in the fridge because you can't cook it fast enough. So now instead of you buying for the month, you might be buying for 2 or 3 days, or you might be buying just for today because you want to make sure that the food is used before the blackout makes the food go bad. Which brings us back to our discussion of the groceries at $350 a month. You can definitely spend less than $350 a month here, but this type of budget is going to give you some options. You can do a mix of shopping. About half of your groceries can be fresh fruits, vegetables, and spices, which helps during the blackouts. And this will come from the local markets where the quality is going to be great and the prices are going to be very low. The other half of your budget goes to the Western style supermarkets like Casino and Mahima. And this is going to be for the imported goods, quality meats, dairy like cheese, yogurt, wine, any specialty items that you want, Lucky Charms, Fruit Loops, anything that's got to be shipped across the country, across the world. And these things are going to be pricey. A block of imported cheddar cheese can be like $10 to $15. The same little small pack of sandwich cheese that we can get from Walmart for $2 to $3, $10 to $15. A decent bottle of French wine starts at around $15. For $350 a month, you can eat very, very well, mixing high quality local foods and imported ingredients. Now, transportation, probably going to be about $150 a month. I would decide against owning a car here, especially if you're only going to be there temporary. The chaotic traffic in this city and the costs add up. So instead, use a private taxi, what they're going to call a depot. You have a few reliable drivers that you can call at any time. And this means that this is like GTA 6 kind of situation where you get on the phone, you call, you know, Guapo, and hey, I need a ride. And they come and pick you up. You hand them some cash, they take you where you got to go. Door to door service. Now, a typical trip like this, cross town, $3 to $5. Way cheaper than Uber, right? Because Uber, 25, $30 to get you down the street. You start talking about cross town, you start talking about $60 to $80. You start talking about, man, I might well just pay for a fucking rental car, man, because even though they're gonna take the $200 out of my pocket as a security deposit, they're gonna give me that money back. If I'm gonna spend $40 on the one way with the Uber, I could pay $40 to have the car all day from a rental car company, and I could just go all over the place with that bitch, right? Opportunity cost. Now, the convenience cost is going to be the $200 down payment that we have to get until we bring the car back. But if I'm renting a car at $40 a day, right? Especially if you're renting a bitch from the airport, $400 a day, and you're going to have that bitch for 5 days, you know, you are what's that like? Um, shit, $200. My math is off. Yeah, I think that's $200. um, and then you're still gonna give them the $200 for the down payment, and then that's gonna be like $400 for the week, for the 5 day week that you're gonna be using the car, plus the gas. Whereas you'd have been spending $40 to get to your spot, $40 to get back from your spot. You'd have been doing $80 a day for 5 days, which would have been like $400. It kind of just washes out, something like that. But the difference is that you got the car all day. So instead of just getting from point A to point B, you've got when you want to go, when you want to get back, the convenience of leaving when you're ready instead of waiting 10, 20 minutes to a half hour for somebody to come pick you up. Then you can stop along the way and not have to spend extra money. Then you can go to extra places. Uh, and the only thing that you're paying in difference now is the cost of gas. You start looking at the convenience of the rental car over an Uber in America. But over here, $3 to $5 to go across town, can't beat that. If you need to drive a few hours, you can negotiate a rate, maybe $20 for a few hours of taking me all over the place. You know, you can use them several times a week. $150 is a solid average for getting all the benefits of a car with none of the hassles because you almost have a personal chauffeur. And if they drive for a living, you call them and they're going to take you places all day and you're going to pay them for the day. Now you got, hey, let's go here, let's go there, let's go this way. You know what I mean? And that's way easier than the hustle and bustle of the public transportation. Now, dining and local services. But you notice now. So Stephen, notice how just changing the way we think about doing things, instead of taking half a day to get to the grocery store, we can get to the grocery store in 10 minutes and we got a personal chauffeur. Just by having a monthly increase in our transportation costs from $50 a month to $150 a month, we're able to get the convenience of on-demand transportation. We can't afford a chauffeur in America. Fuckers want like 25, $30 an hour to stand there and wait for you to get in the car. But I mean, geez, $150 a month for transportation. I mean, So back to dining, social life, and entertainment. We're gonna set that marker at like $400 a month. This is gonna be the fun budget. This is your discretionary spending. A meal at a good mid-range international restaurant might cost you about $20 to $30 a person. A beer at a local bar is going to be about $1.50, but a nicer expat spot is going to be where that's going to be closer to $3 for the same kind of beers. So American prices, right? Because in some places we can go and find a beer for $2.50, and sometimes we find a beer for $5 in America. So not that bad. So this budget lets you eat out at nice places that, and that's going to be like a couple times a week. Meet friends for drinks, go to your gym if you want to do the gym thing, and all of that's going to be about $50 a month without thinking twice about the cost. Now, this isn't talking about like binge drinking where you're just like at $1.50 a bottle, you're doing like 150 bottles. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, reasonable two, three drinks, four at a time. You might at $1.50 a bottle, you might spend $6. You might spend $10 with tip, and that's it. You know, moderation. Okay. But this is going to ensure that you're actively enjoying the city, not just cramped up into a house and doing nothing. Healthcare, because we're going to need healthcare no matter where we go. I know we live a lifestyle in America without healthcare, but it is usually a requirement to travel to other countries that you have international health insurance. So you have to understand $70 a month, we're going to grab the healthcare. This is a non negotiable. The public healthcare system has its challenges. And as an expat, private health insurance is a must because while there are good private clinics, especially in Daola and Yaoundé, you'll likely have to pay upfront costs. So your $70 a month is for a comprehensive international health plan that covers private care in Cameroon and medical evacuations for serious emergencies. Because a lot of the times you might find yourself with an unexpected health condition, could be shock from the local foods, it could be like we had seen something where somebody had went to another country and they were eating a lot of the raw shellfish and stuff, and they ended up with a lot of I'm going to call them critters right up underneath the surface of the skin, and they had to be extracted. That was a huge health issue where they had to be removed from the country and brought to a place that could actually remove the um the critters from under the skin, under the surface of the skin. It's like some Tales from the Crypt. Like you do an X-ray and it almost looks like a silhouette of maggots. Like it was crazy. Uh, but that's not it. You also have like they have some certain delicacies that we would not eat that they would serve on a regular basis, and you've got to understand that if you get sick from eating something over there, or if you catch a common cold that's common over there, but your immune system isn't good for that, you might need a medevac situation. Or you can end up in a situation that you're not expecting to get into that requires you to put your limb in a nice chest and carry it with you to another location and get it sewed back on like Frankenstein. You want to make sure that you have a comprehensive international health care plan that helps with medical evacuations when that's necessary. I hope it's never needed, but it wouldn't be good for you if it wasn't here and you actually did need it. Now, let's start talking about beyond entertainment and good times, malicious or miscellaneous personal care. So, random to dos, about $200 a month. This is like 120,000 African francs. This is going to be your catch-all category. It's going to cover haircuts for $10, clothes, household items, visa fees, or a weekend trip to the beach in Caribbean or Limby. It's going to be your buffer for unexpected costs and some small luxuries. The The $800 two-bedroom that I told you about, the $250 of internet, $350 for groceries, $150 for transportation, $400 for your social life, $70 health care, $200 for miscellaneous items, and you're still at $2,220 a month out of $3,000. This is going to be the key number because on a $3,000 budget, after paying for a very high standard of living, you're still left with $780 every single month. That surplus is the definition of living comfortable. It's money that can go into savings, funding trips home. If you're going to stay there for a long period of time, you can go back home and visit family, or be used for investments right in Cameroon. This shows you that $3,000 isn't just enough to be comfortable. It's enough to build a life and build wealth at the same time. Because consider this, one of the things that we talked about before, when you're in a local area. Here in America, we start talking about renting out rooms and stuff to that effect. Everything in real estate, always a benefit. If you contract it wisely, you work out the details, you have an individual that has a hotel facility or something to that effect. Anything that you go there and they look like, ah man, this could really use like an overhaul, right? And you go and talk to the owner, and you did the math. You're like, hey, this might need X number of dollars worth of work on it. If I pay for the work, you give me X number of dollars per month out of your profits to cover what I did for you. Now you've got a long-term business partner, right? Now, if you're only going to be there temporarily, that's probably not going to be a good thing. But if you're going to be there permanently, or like let's say you're going to be there for a year, and let's say you put like $5,000 down on repairs on one of their units, and now they're going to be paying you for the rest of the year. You know what I mean? Say $600 a month on that $5,000, presumably. Now you've got revolving income. You could do if you're going to be there forever, if you're going to be there for like a permanent basis, you could probably renegotiate, because $5,000 is a lot of money in a country that is such a very cheap country. You might actually only need to give them like $2,000 to rehab a unit, or $1,000 to rehab the unit, and then you might have them give you like 20% return on your investment and give you $120 a month for 12 to 18 months, and pay off the $2,000 that they got from you to rehab their facility. You could turn profits off of your stay while you're there. Investing in small businesses, peer to peer lending. When you learn how to leverage your capital, because if you have an extra 700 something dollars a month that you don't need, you can find 700 something dollars a month that you can invest in, or you can hold, especially if you're staying there long term, you can hold for 10 months the $780 a month till you have $7,800, and then you can start doing big boy investments in a small town, right? But you got to understand that spending $3,000 a month, the life isn't lived on a separate spreadsheet. You got to ask yourself, what about the culture, the social scene, and a topic many are curious about? Because with Passport Bros, dating is a big topic for us. This is going to be where things get more personal, and as interpretive commentary requires a bit more nuance. First, we'll talk about the social life. Cameroon is an incredibly social country. People are generally warm and welcoming. As an expat, however, it's easy to get stuck in the expat bubbles. This is where everybody speaks English. The neighbors that we talked about earlier in those neighboring neighborhoods like Bastos and Banapriso are social hubs for the international communities. So you'll find bars and clubs full of diplomats, NGO workers, and foreign business people. It's easy to make friends and fill your social calendar, but it's also important to make an effort to build relationships with Cameroonians, which can be incredibly rewarding, getting to know the locals outside of the expat bubble. This leads to the topic of dating because Cameroon is a country of immense cultural diversity, but broadly speaking, many societies here are socially conservative with a strong emphasis on family, marriage, and community. So, for a foreigner, especially a man entering the dating scene, it is critical to understand this. While you can go over there, passport bro, just for the hookup culture, you actually have to recognize the idea of casual, undefined dating that is common in the West isn't as widespread in Cameroon. Relationships often have a clearer path towards marriage. Now, a word of caution, it's a damaging stereotype to say that all local women are only looking for marriage and security. The reality is far more complex. Just like anywhere, people's motivations are diverse. So you will meet highly educated, career focused women, and you will meet women for whom family is the top priority. And yes, in a place with a wide economic gap, you will encounter people who see a relationship with a foreigner as a path to financial security or a visa to another country. So you may find that showing up and saying I'm an American might get a woman throwing herself on you, which is what passport bros usually do. But you also might have yourself tell a woman that I'm an American and she say, and so. So you got to really think about what you're trying to get out of your interactions with them. The key is going to be to communicate, but you got to be clear. You also have to be honest about your intentions and you want to ask direct questions about their intentions. You don't want to beat around the bush. You want to stand on your non negotiable expectations for behavior. So if you're going there with the intent to find a wife, with the expectation to bring her back to your country, then you need to be clear on the first date, on the first interaction. Hey, yeah, I'm looking for the type of person that I will take with me to go back home. So I will get her the visa equipment together. I'll get her plane ticket together. We will go to the airport together. No, hop on a plane and fly out. And I will do what it takes to stay here until we get it done. Right? Making it clear that I'm not leaving without you, kind of situation. Right? Being authentic about your expectations deviates you from any problems you may have with dating the kind of person or involving yourself with the kind of person that's only entertaining you for the money. Now, discussing topics like family, monogamy, and future plans early on is essential to avoid any misunderstandings, right? Your $3,000 budget gets you a nice apartment, but it's your character and your cultural awareness that will determine the quality of your human connections. Now, remember that $780 surplus that we calculated? That's nearly $9,400 a year. Many expats use this for savings or travel, but what if you reinvested that surplus right into the country? This is a path that a growing number of foreigners are exploring. So if we start with realistic about investment climates here, the World Bank and other sources note that while the country is rich in resources and has a young population, it also faces significant challenges with bureaucracies, a complex legal system, and a lot of corruption. And furthermore, ongoing security concerns in the Northwest, Southwest, and far North regions present serious risks. So, doing business here requires some patience, thorough due diligence, and ideally trustworthy local partners. So, you got to really get to know these people before you hand them some money. With those warnings, where are the opportunities at? As I mentioned, most tangible spot to start is real estate. The demand for quality housing in Douala and Yaoundé is high. So over a few years, Your surplus could become the down payment on a plot of land or a small apartment building to rent out. While some analyses show rental years can be attractive, sometimes citing above 7 to 8% in prime areas, your net yield after maintenance and other costs will vary widely depending on where you get it and how often it's being used. The biggest risk is going to be the land and the title verification. You absolutely need a reputable lawyer to hold you down when you're expanding a real estate investment business there. You want to make sure when you go there with a real estate investment, you go there with the business, not just the idea. You want to go there and establish yourself a foreign domestic entity and then start picking up your real estate and put you an attorney on payroll. Now, another sector that is good to go into is agriculture and agro processing. There are opportunities in adding value to local products. For example, small poultry farm or a business that dries, packages, or juicing local fruits for city markets. Third is the service sector. Now, as the middle class grows, so does the demand for reliable services. And this could be anything from professionally managed home cleaning services to a modern cafe or guest house in a good neighborhood. Because do we even want to clean our own houses? No, we have to. We have to. So if somebody else could do it for us for a very cheap rate, we would love that. Okay. The point is that the surplus income from the $3,000 budget is potential seed capital. It opens a path from just living in the country to investing in the local economy and building long term wealth on top of that. But it must be approached with your eyes wide open to both the opportunities and the very, very real risks involved with investments. So, we've gone through the numbers, the lifestyle, and the investment potential. We've seen that on a $1,500 budget, you can live great and have an authentic life. And we've shown that on a $3,000 budget, you can have a very high standard of living with Western style comforts and still have a surplus of nearly $800 left over every month that can be utilized for other things. Um, oh, we have a wild, entertaining question. He says, I am broke, no money, how to invest? Well, first thing you have to do is get you some money because how do you invest if you don't have anything? There's plenty of opportunities on this platform. A lot of the Tuesday shows that we have that show you how to start up your own business with no money. We show you how to start up a business online with no money. We show you how to reinvest in your business until your business is generating its own money to cover its own overhead and then start paying yourself. Turning habits into automated functioning entities. Create yourself a level of capital that is flowing that you can then utilize to invest. If you have zero, you have nothing to start investing with. If you have a standard of living and you have a generalized income, you can observe what you spend your money on and determine if that's really necessary. One of the first things that you can cut out of every single standard of living is um, alcohol, cigarettes, weed, snacks, um, dating scene, and save you hundreds of dollars a month, which you can then reallocate towards investments. Now, does that mean you need to be a hermit in your house? No. But instead of spending $250 a weekend hanging out with your homies or dancing with chicks that aren't interested in you just because you put them on your bar tab, you could put that $250 a week into a brokerage account, and now you're spending $1,000 a month on yourself instead of spending $1,000 a month on trying to hook up with chicks. Which, if you do the math, you're spending $12,000 a year trying to hook up with chicks instead of spending $12,000 a year on your own financial success. So it depends on if you're broke because you don't have an income, or if you're broke because you waste all of your money on irresponsible spending. Another thing you can do away with if you're an avid gamer and you pay for online video games, whether it's video games on your cell phone, video games on your Xbox or your PlayStation, Fortnite, whatever it is, when you pay for those DLCs, that's money wasted. If you buy the console and you buy the game itself and you play the offline version, that should be it. That's enough entertainment. When you start paying for the online version and then you're paying for extra stuff on top of that, you're wasting your money. It's entertaining. But what's more entertaining? To play GTA 6 or actually visit all of the locations that were the models for the GTA 6 map? The difference between the two is clear. To be able to go to different places, you want to be able to do different things, but because you don't have any money left over, it's because you just bought yourself the latest promoted DLC character or a different skin for the same DLC character that you already had, that you don't have any money to do anything. So you got to ask yourself first, exactly why are you broke? And then start investing in not being broke and then reinvest that money into areas of profit. So to say wisdom is mine, you came in here with the wrong response because there isn't a lot of wisdom. I don't. What are you smart in if you don't have any money? What do you? I don't know. Anyway, the answer to the title questions: can you live very comfortably in Cameroon on $3,000 a month? Why individuals are overpaying in Cameroon? The comfort of the standard of living? Definitely. Yes, you can stay there with $3,000 a month. Yes, uh, people deliberately overpay on the standard of living for the convenience of a more westernized culture. So you can live a life many in America would consider luxurious, which is a life without rent stress, with great social scenes, and with capital left over to save, travel, or build businesses with. But Cameroon is not a simple paradise. It is a country of deep contrasts. It offers incredible warmth and opportunity, but it also demands resilience and patience. The power will go out. The bureaucracy can be frustrating. The country is for the adventurer, the patient investor, and the culturally curious person who is willing to trade the predictability of the West for a more vibrant, if sometimes chaotic, reality. So you will find that your experience will be overwhelmingly positive. So even though there might be a few frustrations along the way, the final freedom you have to understand is going to be very real. And the richness of the culture is something that you can't put on a spreadsheet. It's not something that you can imagine from a download a character from an online game, you know. But I mean, that's just we're just talking about like what it could be if you put your time and your effort into another way to be. Now, I definitely want to hear from you guys. What part of the budget breakdown surprises you the most? uh, for those who have lived or traveled in this particular region, how does this line up with your experiences? And for those that are thinking about the move or anything close to this, what's your biggest question about moving to another country? Let me know in the comments below. I'm going to read all of them. Stephen will tell you. And I respond usually within 24 hours. And your questions help everyone else, uh, and it helps me to create more future videos to aid you guys in your ability to succeed. Now, if you found this helpful and you want more honest, in-depth content about the life in different areas of Africa, you want to give this vehicle a thumbs up if you haven't done so already. Like to the channel and hit the notification buttons if you haven't done so already, because we're going to be covering the rest of the hundreds of countries around the world that you could potentially go and live in. and do a whole lot better than what you're doing in America for the same quantity of money. But in order for you to do that, the first thing you have to do is change your income stream from showing up and clocking in to get paid for your presence to getting paid off of your computer or your cell phone or your tablet. That way you can take your job and fly to another country and keep working. You don't have to retire at 70 before you start traveling the world. You just have to transition your monthly income from showing up and getting paid in person to a brick and mortar entity to logging into your computer and getting paid from being on your computer, where at this point, the only requirement you need is stable internet, stable and consistent internet anywhere around the world. Now, that's all I got for you guys for today. I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you this information to make you guys higher value men, not just by increasing your income, but also by changing your decision-making skills, because your decision-making skills impacts your income. And ladies, well, this is the Male Driven Podcast from the male's perspective. You too can make yourselves higher value women, but I tell you guys on a regular basis to pay attention to your 20 and 30-year plan, reverse engineer that to what you're going to do today, and then proactively stick to that plan. Keep your eyes and ears open for the potential suitor that has the personality and the characteristics, the drive, ambition, dedication, motivation, admiration, their integrity to accomplish their own goals. Because they got to have goals in life. If you're dating somebody that doesn't have a dream, then they're going to be riding your coattail. Because if they don't have a direction in life, where are they going? Wherever the fuck you take them. So you want to see where they plan on going for themselves and see how well that meshes up with where you're trying to go. Because their goals and your goals don't have to be the same, but if they're headed in the same direction where y'all have long-term satisfaction goals, y'all can help each other accomplish y'all's goals. Instead of short-term gratification goals where once it's done, plateaued, right? And if everyone in a relationship is holding long-term satisfaction goals, we can clearly say that two people can make it to $1 million faster than one. So, with that being said, I want to start off by saying, give a special shout out to Steven, Danny Steffen, Omni81, Red Void, Michael, OG Kicks, and Bayside. I want to give a special shout out to you guys. I appreciate you guys coming to tonight's show. We're going to be getting closer to 11:30 Eastern Standard Time when we start the show tomorrow. So make sure that you guys swing back by. If you haven't hit the notification buttons, do so. For the rest of, we got the rest of July already up there. We're scheduling shows for August and September right now. So you can go in there and sweep the whole platform and see what all topics we have coming up for you guys. And then decide which ones you want to show up for. I would come for all of them. But if you come for the ones that most benefit you, hey, I look forward to seeing you there. So I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.